Okay, so have you ever felt like you're just spinning your wheels? Like you're trying to make progress, but you keep hitting those same roadblocks.
Mm-hmm.
Well, today's deep dive just might have some unexpected answers for you.
Okay.
We are exploring the final chapter of a book about persuasion.
Okay.
But get this, it's not about closing deals or winning those arguments.
Right.
It's actually about the author's personal philosophy for, you know, overall success in life.
Interesting.
The kind of success that just spills over into every area of your life.
Okay.
So it's not just about, getting ahead at work. It's about just generally being a more fulfilled person.
Right.
And
That's really cool.
yeah, and what's fascinating is how the author kind of flips the script on us a bit.
Mm.
They start by describing the traits of successful persuaders.
Huh?
Things like independence, financial freedom,
Mm.
strong relationships, a real zest for life.
Mm-hmm.
But then they pose a question that really makes you think,
Oh.
what is that question?
Well, they ask, are those traits the result of being a great persuader
Okay,
or the cause?
yeah,
Like, do you become more independent because you're persuasive?
I see.
Or does that independence somehow fuel your ability to persuade in the first place?
Oh,
It's kind of like that chicken and the egg thing,
yeah, it's like which one comes first?
Exactly.
I can see how both could be true.
Right.
Like if you are a persuasive person, maybe you're able to just open more doors for yourself, right? Which could then lead to more independence.
Hmm.
But then again, maybe it's that inner strength that, self-reliance that makes you persuasive in the first place.
Yeah, I think it's such an interesting question, and it really makes you wonder if we focused on building those traits, could we actually become more persuasive as a byproduct?
I love that.
Almost like accidentally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and think about, something like procrastination. I think we all struggle with that at some point.
Yeah, all the time.
What if tackling those deeper issues,
Yeah.
right? Like finding your purpose, building confidence, fostering genuine enjoyment in your work,
Yeah. Mhm.
could actually help you break free from that cycle of procrastination.
That's so interesting because I can totally see that.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
if you feel more in control of your life, more passionate about what you're doing, maybe the urge to procrastinate just kind of like naturally diminishes a bit.
Exactly. You're not fighting yourself anymore.
Yeah.
And speaking of not fighting yourself, the author's first principle is so simple, yet so profound.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Tell me.
It is work on yourself first.
I like that. I like where this is going.
It's all about prioritizing your own growth and well-being before trying to influence or persuade others.
Makes sense.
Think of it like the classic, oxygen mask analogy on an airplane.
Oh, yeah.
You have to secure your own oxygen supply before you can help anyone else.
Right. You can't pour from an empty cup, right?
Precisely.
Yeah.
And the author even quotes Stephen Covey, the 7 Habits guy, talking about how real courage is actually found in those everyday choices we make.
Oh, interesting.
It's not always about those grand gestures, but it's about, those small, consistent decisions that reflect our values and, move us closer to our goals.
I love that. So it's about like those small daily actions, like
Yeah.
just choosing to tackle that challenging task instead of like scrolling through social media for the 100th time.
Exactly.
Just like showing up for ourselves, even in those like seemingly insignificant moments.
Right.
Yeah. But sometimes it's tough to even know where to start with self-improvement.
Mm-hmm.
It's like what needs working on in the first place.
That's where this idea of the Lake Wobegon effect comes in,
Mm-hmm.
which the author mentions, but they don't really unpack fully in this chapter.
Lake Wobegon effect? What is that?
It's this fascinating phenomenon where we tend to overestimate our abilities and positive qualities.
Oh, so we all think we're better than we are.
Well, yeah, it's named after that fictional town, where humorously all the children are above average.
Yeah.
We all like to think, we're a bit special, a cut above the rest.
Mm-hmm.
But that can make it really hard to see our blind spots.
Oh, for sure. It's like, how can we possibly improve if we already think we're awesome?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why honest self-assessment is so crucial.
Yeah.
It's not about being overly critical,
Yeah.
but it's about just developing a clear-eyed view of our strengths and weaknesses.
So we can figure out where we need to grow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can't fix what you don't acknowledge.
Right?
And that growth journey, especially if it involves challenging the status quo, it's rarely a walk in the park.
True.
The author actually quotes Gandhi, who said, "First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win."
Wow.
It's such a powerful reminder that anytime we try to step outside our comfort zone,
Yeah.
we're bound to encounter some resistance.
Yeah. That's so true. But I guess the key is knowing the difference between, resistance that's pushing us to grow versus resistance that's signaling we're on the wrong path altogether.
Yeah. How do we navigate that?
How do we navigate that?
Well, that's where critical thinking comes in.
Okay.
Just because an idea is unpopular or unconventional doesn't automatically make it a good one.
Right.
We have to evaluate, you know, advice, even from those respected sources, and see if it aligns with our own values and goals.
So true. And that leads perfectly into the author's second principle,
Okay, with that.
which is don't judge or criticize these principles before trying them.
Okay.
And to illustrate this point, they tell this really captivating parable about a group of nomads traveling through the desert.
Oh, yeah, the story of the nomads and the gold nuggets.
Yes, this
Yeah.
is where things get interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so paint me a picture. Set the scene for me.
Okay, so imagine you're one of these nomads, exhausted, thirsty, desperate for shelter,
Okay.
and suddenly this blinding light appears, and a booming voice just commands you to collect as many small stones as you can carry.
Wait, what? Rocks?
Rocks.
I think most of us would be like, no, thank you. I need water, not a rock collection.
Right. It seems very counterintuitive, maybe even absurd.
Yeah.
But the voice promises a great reward if they obey.
Okay.
And so some of the nomads, despite their doubts, they start, filling their saddlebags with these seemingly worthless stones.
Wow. So they trusted the voice even though it made no logical sense at all.
Right. They had faith.
I'm dying to know what happened next.
Well, upon reaching their destination, those stones magically transformed into gold nuggets.
No way.
The nomads who had trusted the instructions were suddenly wealthy,
Oh my God.
while those who hesitated or refused were left empty-handed.
Talk about a lesson in trusting the process, even when it seems completely bonkers.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It's such a powerful metaphor for the importance of keeping an open mind,
Yeah.
and being willing to experiment with those new ideas,
Mm-hmm.
even if they seem unconventional or counterintuitive at first.
Yeah. So for our listeners, the question becomes, what stones are we overlooking in our own lives?
Right. What opportunities are we just dismissing because they don't fit into our preconceived notions of what success should look like?
Exactly. And, that takes a certain level of resolve, right? That willingness to stick with something even when it feels difficult or unrewarding at the moment.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the author's third principle,
Okay.
practice resolve, persistence, and determination.
It's about having that grit,
Yes.
to keep going,
Yes.
even when you want to throw in the towel.
Oh, absolutely.
It's about recognizing that success rarely comes easy.
Yeah, and it's about
It's about
trusting that the effort you're putting in is actually building towards something meaningful, even if you don't see immediate results.
Yes, exactly. And speaking of effort and results,
Okay.
to illustrate this point, the author shares this very relatable story about a young couple and a broken water pump.
Oh, yeah. I remember this one. I actually laughed out loud when I read it.
It's such a charming story.
Yeah.
And it really captures the essence of persistence.
So, okay, picture this. It's a
Mhm.
beautiful summer day, and this young couple is out on a romantic picnic in the countryside. Yeah.
They're driving in, his dad's vintage convertible, talk about setting the mood right,
Sounds idyllic.
until things take an unexpected turn.
Oh.
So the girlfriend has an allergy attack and desperately needs water.
Okay.
But their water bottle has sprung a leak.
Oh, no.
But luckily, they spot this abandoned farm with an old-fashioned water pump.
Okay.
Our hero jumps out, eager to save the day,
Mm-hmm.
But when he starts pumping, nothing happens.
Oh, man. Talk about a frustrating situation.
Right.
You're sweating, your arms are aching, and still no water.
I know, 5 minutes passed, 10 minutes passed. It would be so easy to just give up at that point.
Yeah, I think so. It would be tempting.
But his girlfriend encourages him to keep going. She just have this unwavering belief that the water is there
Yeah.
if he just keeps pumping.
Okay.
And guess what?
Wow.
She's right.
Yeah.
After what feels like an eternity, water comes gushing out of the pump.
Persistence pays off.
He saved the day, plus I bet he earned some major brownie points with his girlfriend.
So, and that's precisely the point the author is making.
Yeah.
Success rarely arrives on a neat and tidy schedule.
Right.
There will be times when you are putting in the work and you just see no tangible progress.
Mm-hmm.
But that does not mean your efforts are wasted.
It's about trusting the process and having faith that those seemingly small, consistent efforts are laying the groundwork for something really remarkable.
I love that.
And that brings us to the author's fourth and final principle.
Okay, hit me with it.
Tap into your value, find your worth, and exceed your potential. They actually use a classic parable to illustrate this point, the story of acres of diamonds.
No, yeah, I've heard of that one. It's a really thought-provoking story.
It's the one about the Persian farmer who sells everything he owns to search for diamonds,
Mm-hmm.
only to discover that his own land was full of them all along.
Right. It's that powerful reminder that sometimes we are so focused on chasing what we think we want
Uh-huh.
that we overlook that incredible potential that's already right in front of us. This farmer, Al-Hafed, he was perfectly content with his life until he heard these tales of the immense wealth that diamonds could bring.
Oh,
And from that moment on, he was just consumed by this desire for riches.
he got caught up in it.
Yeah, dreaming of buying entire countries, giving his children thrones.
It's like he fell into that comparison trap that I think we all struggle with sometimes.
Yeah, for sure.
You see others achieving success or, accumulating wealth, and you start to question your own path.
Totally. Like,
Yeah.
what am I missing out on?
Exactly.
Yeah. And in the process, we lose sight of what we do have, all
Mhm.
those precious diamonds that are already within our grasp.
Yeah.
So in Al-Hafed's case, this longing for diamonds led him to make some pretty drastic decisions. He
No.
sold his farm, he left his family, and he spent years wandering the world in search of those elusive gems.
But he never found them, did he?
Sadly, no. He ended up heartbroken, penniless, and completely lost.
Oh, wow.
And in the end, he throws himself into the ocean out of despair.
That's so sad.
It's a tragic ending, and the irony is almost too much to bear.
Yeah.
Because the new owner of his former farm
Yeah.
discovers that the land is just brimming with diamonds.
Right.
The very thing he was searching for was right there all along.
Wow.
Talk about a lesson in appreciating what you have and not letting greed blind you to your own potential.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that's such an important takeaway for our listeners.
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy to get caught up in chasing external validation,
Yeah.
material wealth or someone else's definition of success,
Mm-hmm.
that we forget to just nurture and appreciate the incredible gifts and talents we already possess.
We're all running around searching for that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. We have a whole treasure chest of jewels buried in our own backyards.
I love that analogy. But here's the thing. Recognizing those diamonds is just the first step.
Uh-huh.
The author points out that the diamonds on Al-Hafed's farm were likely uncut and unpolished,
Mm.
just like those rough stones that the nomads collected in that earlier story.
Right. It's a great connection.
So it's not just about recognizing the value of what we already have, but also about recognizing that our potential, our diamonds,
Yeah.
may need some refining, some polishing to really shine.
Exactly. Our talents and abilities are often raw and undeveloped.
Yeah.
They require effort, learning, and experience to be transformed into something truly remarkable.
So we have to be willing to put in the work to cut and polish those diamonds, to refine our skills
Yes.
and bring our potential to its fullest expression.
Mhm.
So how do we go about polishing those uncut diamonds within ourselves? What are some practical steps our listeners can take to unearth and refine their hidden potential?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Right. It's like, how do we bridge that gap between, recognizing our potential and actually bringing it to life?
I think it starts with a shift in perspective.
Okay.
Instead of fixating on our, perceived shortcomings,
Right.
we need to embrace a growth mindset, that belief that our abilities can be developed,
Yes.
through dedication and hard work.
So it's about seeing those uncut diamonds as opportunities for growth and transformation, not as evidence of our limitations.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that.
And then it's about taking action.
Okay.
Think about those areas where you feel a natural spark of interest or excitement.
Okay.
What are you naturally drawn to? What are you curious about? What do you lose track of time doing?
It's about tapping into those activities that make you feel alive and engaged and energized.
Yes.
The things that make you feel like you're in your element.
Yes,
And
exactly.
then it's about actively seeking out those opportunities to learn and grow in those areas.
Okay.
That could mean, taking courses or attending workshops or reading books,
Mhm.
connecting with mentors, or even just having conversations with people who inspire you.
Oh, yeah. Surrounding yourself with people who challenge you to think differently.
Exactly, who push you to step outside of your comfort zone and explore new possibilities.
I love that.
Yes.
And let's not forget the importance of practice.
Yes.
Just like any skill, developing our potential requires consistent effort and dedication. The more we practice, the more we refine our abilities and bring those uncut diamonds to their full brilliance.
Practice makes progress, right?
Exactly.
But sometimes progress can feel so slow and frustrating. How do we stay motivated when we're not seeing those immediate results? I know that's a struggle for me personally.
Well, I think it goes back to that third principle we discussed, persistence.
Okay.
Remember that story of the young couple and the water pump?
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes you have to keep pumping even when you feel like giving up.
It's about trusting that the process works and having faith that those seemingly small efforts are actually contributing to something much bigger.
Yes.
It's about believing that if you keep showing up and doing the work, those diamonds will eventually be revealed.
And celebrating those small wins along the way.
Yeah.
Every step forward, no matter how tiny,
Mm,
is a testament to your commitment to growth.
so true.
So acknowledge those wins and give yourself credit for the effort that you're putting in.
I love that. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the author's 4 principles for success, let's recap those key takeaways for our listeners.
Right.
First, it's all about working on yourself first. You know,
Mm-hmm.
cultivate those traits that will empower you to live a fulfilling and successful life.
Right.
That might mean focusing on your confidence, building strong relationships, or just finding what truly lights you up inside.
Absolutely.
Second, don't dismiss new ideas before trying them. Be open to unexpected opportunities, even if they seem strange or unconventional at first.
Right.
You know, remember those nomads who collected stones in the desert?
Yeah,
You never know what gold nuggets might be hidden beneath the surface.
exactly.
Third, practice resolve and persistence.
Yes.
Success rarely comes easily, so be prepared to put in the work even when it feels challenging. It's like that water pump story, you know?
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to keep pumping even when you're tired and frustrated. But trust me, that breakthrough is often just around the corner.
You got to trust the process.
Exactly. And finally, tap into your value and exceed your potential. We all have those unique talents and abilities just waiting to be discovered and refined.
We do.
And as the author so beautifully puts it, become an overflowing destiny of diamonds.
What a beautiful image.
Right.
It's a reminder that our potential is limitless,
Yes.
and we have the power to create a life that truly sparkles.
So what steps can you take today to start creating that overflowing destiny for yourself?
Yeah.
What uncut diamonds are you ready to polish? What uncut diamonds are you ready to polish?
Yeah. It all starts with recognizing those diamonds
Mhm.
and then, taking those first steps to polish them to a shine.
And remembering that the journey itself is part of the reward. You know, it's
Mhm.
not just about reaching the destination,
Right.
but about the growth and transformation that happens along the way.
Absolutely. It's funny, as we were talking about those 4 principles, I kept thinking back to those traits the author listed at the beginning.
You mean those qualities they associate with successful persuaders?
Yes. Like independence, financial freedom,
Mm-hmm.
strong relationships, that zest for life.
Mm.
I'm starting to see those traits less as prerequisites for persuasion and more as natural outcomes of applying these 4 principles.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So it's not about chasing those traits directly,
Right.
but rather creating the conditions for them to flourish.
Exactly. Imagine someone who's struggling with financial insecurity.
Yeah.
Hmm. They might feel trapped, like they can't pursue their passions or take risks.
Right, because they're so worried about just making ends meet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if they start applying these principles, working on themselves, embracing new possibilities, persisting through challenges, tapping into their potential,
Yeah.
they might find that courage to make a change.
They might finally start that side hustle.
Yes. They might invest in their education, start a side hustle, or even negotiate a raise.
Yeah.
At the very least, they've shifted their mindset from one of scarcity to one of possibility.
Mm-hmm. And as they gain more financial stability, that sense of independence and freedom just starts to grow.
It's a ripple effect.
Yeah.
It's not about, manipulating others to get what you want.
Right.
It's about becoming the kind of person who naturally attracts success and abundance.
I love that. And that applies to relationships too.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, if you're working on yourself, becoming more confident and self-assured,
Yeah.
you're going to show up differently in your relationships.
You'll attract people who are drawn to your authentic self.
Right.
Not to some facade you're putting on.
Exactly. And as for that zest for life the author talks about, I think that comes from aligning your actions with your values,
Yeah.
pursuing your passions, embracing challenges,
Mm-hmm.
constantly learning and growing.
When you're living a life that feels true to you, that zest for life naturally emerges.
Yeah, it's like your inner spark is finally ignited.
Exactly.
So to wrap up this incredible deep dive, let's distill this down to like one actionable takeaway for our listeners.
Okay.
What's the one thing they can do today to start unlocking their potential?
Start today.
Mm-hmm.
Don't wait for the perfect moment or the perfect plan.
Yeah.
Just take that first step.
I love it. Even if it's as simple as identifying one area where you want to improve
Right.
or one new thing you want to try.
Remember, those uncut diamonds are just waiting to be polished to a shine.
Mm-hmm.
It all starts with that first step.
And remember, the journey itself is part of the reward.
Yes.
So embrace the challenges, celebrate the small wins, and never stop learning and growing.
As the author so beautifully puts it, become an overflowing destiny of diamonds.
That's beautiful.
What a powerful reminder that our potential is limitless, and we have the power to create a life that truly sparkles.
Thanks for joining us on this amazing deep dive into unlocking your potential.
It was my pleasure.
Until next time, keep those diamonds shining. What uncut diamonds are you ready to polish?
It all starts with recognizing those diamonds and then taking those first steps, to polish them to a shine.
And remembering that the journey itself is part of the reward.
It's not just about reaching the destination.
Right.
It's about the growth and transformation that happens along the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's funny, as we were talking about those 4 principles,
Yeah.
I kept thinking back to those traits the author listed at the beginning.
You mean like independence and all that?
Yes. Those qualities they associate with successful persuaders.
Yes. Like independence, financial freedom, strong relationships, that zest for life.
Uh-huh.
I'm starting to see those traits less as prerequisites for persuasion
Okay.
and more as natural outcomes of applying these 4 principles.
Oh, so it's not about chasing those traits directly.
Right.
But rather creating the conditions for them to just naturally kind of flourish.
Exactly. Imagine someone struggling with financial insecurity.
Yeah.
They might feel trapped, unable to pursue their passions or take risks.
Right, because they're so worried about making ends meet.
Exactly. But if they start applying these principles,
Like working on themselves.
yes, working on themselves, embracing new possibilities, persisting through challenges, tapping into their potential, they might find the courage to make a change.
They might finally start that side hustle.
Yes. They might invest in their education, start a side hustle, or even negotiate a raise.
Right.
At the very least, they'll have shifted their mindset,
Yeah.
from one of scarcity to one of possibility.
And as they gain more financial stability, that sense of independence and freedom just starts to grow.
It creates this ripple effect,
Yeah.
It's not about manipulating others to get what you want.
Right.
It's about becoming the kind of person who naturally attracts success and abundance.
And that applies to relationships too.
Absolutely.
If you're working on yourself, becoming more confident and self-assured,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to show up differently in your relationships.
You're going to attract people who are drawn to your authentic self,
Exactly.
not to some facade you're putting on.
And as for that zest for life the author talks about,
Yes.
I think that comes from aligning your actions with your values,
For sure.
pursuing your passions, embracing challenges, constantly learning and growing.
When you're living a life that feels true to you, that zest for life just naturally emerges.
Yeah, it's like your inner spark is finally ignited.
Exactly.
So to wrap up this incredible deep dive,
Okay.
let's distill this down to one actionable takeaway for our listeners.
Right.
What's the one thing they can do today to start unlocking their potential?
Start today.
Hmm.
Don't wait for the perfect moment or the perfect plan.
Yeah.
Just take that first step.
Even if it's as simple as, identifying one area where you want to improve,
Right.
or one new thing you want to try.
Remember, those uncut diamonds are just waiting to be polished.
Mm-hmm.
It all starts with that first step.
And remember, the journey itself is part of the reward.
It is.
So embrace the challenges, celebrate the small wins.
Yes.
And never stop learning and growing.
Beautifully said. And as the author puts it so eloquently, become an overflowing destiny of diamonds.
Such a powerful image.
Our potential is limitless, and we have the power to create a life that truly sparkles.
Thanks for joining us on this amazing deep dive into unlocking your potential.
My pleasure.
Until next time, keep those diamonds shining.